I hate this. I hate my life. I'm never gonna...
Press pause, Mateo. I'm you, years from now. And let me tell you, life turned out pretty good, man. I know you can't see it now, but all these feelings you have and the moment you're in right now, it's nothing more than that. A tiny moment. God chose you for a purpose. Just take a breath. Press pause.
Goya cares because you are a precious gift from God.
La misión de Hands of Justice es brindar empoderamiento económico a los sobrevivientes a través de la concientización, la divulgación, las becas para sobrevivientes, los grupos de apoyo dirigidos por sobrevivientes, la terapia de trauma y las necesidades básicas de todos los días. Tenemos con nosotros a Cary, fundadora de Hands of Justice. Veamos la entrevista a continuación.
Welcome, Rebecca. Thank you for your time. Rebecca, what is the history of Hands of Justice?
Well, Hands of Justice, we were established in 2017. What most people don't know is that we first established as an organization geared towards teenagers. We wanted to educate teens and then provide them with opportunities to go out and educate their peers. We felt like their peers were more likely to listen to their friends than they were to another 40-year-old woman telling them about internet safety. And it did work, and we continue to do those things. But as a survivor, I wanted to branch out and work with these men and women one-on-one, and so we decided to look at gap areas within anti-trafficking and provide programs that hit those areas. And then within couple of years, we were able to establish the Economic Empowerment and Resource Center and open our doors to those men and women for those purposes. So.
Rebecca, what is it important to educate our community about the problem of trafficking?
Yeah, well, I think that's twofold. First of all, education is absolutely vital when it comes to fighting human trafficking. The reason is if you don't know what to look for, if you don't know the signs that are out there, then you cannot help somebody. I mean, it's hidden in plain sight all around you, so if you aren't educated on what it looks like, how are we able to reach those that need it the most? But on the flip side, it also helps survivors or victims to self-identify. For instance, it took me about 15 years after my abuse to understand what had happened to me was actually considered human trafficking, and that's because I was educated on that. So that whole 15 years before that, I was sitting there in silence because I thought it was a one-time incident or something that I deserved. So educating the community is also helping these men and women to understand what has happened to them and what they can do once they do self-identify.
Yes, it's very important. And a survivor needs ongoing support. Why is it essential to make a community?
I think because it helps them to understand they're not alone. So when we are surrounded by a community of people that are going to say, hey, we believe you, we hear you, we see you, we're going to give them a little bit more support and help them through the things that they need. But on the flip side of that, we're also providing them with a community of like-minded individuals, people that have been there and gone through the same similar situations, so they can walk alongside them and provide them support and encouragement in a way that the rest of the community cannot. So it's really important that they have both of those.
Very important. Rebecca, tell us about the new resource and Economic Empowerment Center.
Yes, we love this place. So a couple years ago, I had a vision of I wanted a safe and welcoming environment for survivors to come together and basically just do life together. These men and women have a lot of needs, and so in that process, we were starting to identify specific needs that they have, and so when they're here, we can provide them things like trauma therapy. We have 4 trauma therapists here on campus. We can have them sign up for one of our survivor-led support groups. They can get education, meaning they can apply for a scholarship, but if they don't have the internet, they can come and use this resource center for a computer that allows them to get online with, no questions asked. We have a boutique here. If they need everyday essential items or clothing for like court or for school or for job interviews, those are available to them. It's all brand new items, specifically because we believe these men and women deserve nothing less, but also it allows them to come in and to get these needs without constantly having to ask the community for help, which sometimes is a hindrance in itself, right? So we just provide the needs that we see that they need.
Amazing, Senator. What do you feel is Hands of Justice and most outstanding achievement?
This center, the ERC I call it. I will tell you that when I announced that I had this vision, the community surrounded us and we had this place up and running in 10 months, less than 10 months. The community was like, this is needed, we see that it's needed, we want to help you with that, and we were able to open our doors. And that is a huge accomplishment. There is nothing else quite like this in the tri-state county, and we're hoping that people will learn from that. So yes, that's what I consider one of our biggest accomplishments. There is our survivor-led support groups I also consider to be a huge accomplishment, simply because most organizations don't have support groups, or if they do, they're only open to the people that are part of their program. Our groups are open to anybody, men, women, children, family members that need that support. They're all run by overcomers themselves, which allows for them to step up into leadership position and really do life with others. So we love that. We're proud of that.
We see that you integrate the therapy and the opportunity for education into the whole process. Why?
We found that there was some gap areas within anti-trafficking that these men and women were not being supplied with. I will tell you, back when I needed help, when I self-identified, if those resources had been available, it would have made life a lot more easier. So just knowing that there's people out there that are going to give us the opportunities to go back to school or to be trained on jobs that we have no skills for, providing those programs for them is life-changing. Being able to say, look, you can go back to school. We understand it's overwhelming, but we're going to help you and encourage you and support you through that process, not only financially, but every day as they're going through it. It's a life-changing entity for them, basically.
Let's talk about survivors. What do you hear in the most substantial pain in their heart?
It's different for every single one of them, but the collaborative is that every single one of these men and women are suffering shame and guilt and pain, overwhelming pain, knowing that it's hard to explain. It's almost like survivor guilt, where they know they are lucky enough to get out of that life, but their friends and their family might still be stuck in it. They have that shame and the guilt of being a lucky one to get out of it, but knowing that they're still there dealing with it. And then all of that they have to deal with has come to the surface at some point after their abuse. So they're dealing with constant PTSD symptoms, the depression and anxiety. They're still suffering from, oh my gosh, the list goes on and on. But I think the biggest thing for most of the survivors that I have worked with is dealing with that shame and the guilt of what they have had to suffer.
Rebecca, what signs should we look out for, and when should the person seek help?
Yeah, the list of signs to look for is it's long. So I do encourage those that don't know it to get educated, but a few of those, some of the most prevalent ones are isolation would be a huge, because traffickers, that is the first thing normally that they will do with their victim is isolate them from their friends and family. So if you know somebody who's really outgoing, who all of a sudden is no longer really much in the picture, that's a huge red flag that something's going on. Doesn't necessarily mean trafficking, but normally that's a big sign something is going on. We're talking about bruises and cuts and burns, any mental or physical abuse, the signs of it, malnourishment and neglect. A lot of these men and women are starved and locked into small rooms for punishment phases, so they are going to be emaciated, they are going to be exhausted. Exhaustion is a big one, simply because, just put it into perspective, these men, women, and children are sometimes made to perform sexual acts up to 15 to 20 times a night. So yeah, they're going to appear very exhausted, very confused, very disoriented. There are things like branding. Branding is what it sounds like. It's like branding cattle. They will put tattoos either on their neck or on their arm right here, and it is an indication for other traffickers to know that this person's already owned. Lack of eye contact is a big one. I still sometimes suffer from lack of eye contact, but one of the first things that they do teach us is not to make eye contact with any authority figure, especially men. There is kind of an unspoken language there between traffickers and the eye contact thing. So we learned that very, very quickly. Other things would be like unexplained gifts and money and clothing, jewelry, cell phones that they can't tell you where it's coming from, or a lot of time spent online without telling us who you're talking to. Those are huge red flags, mostly because online right now is the #1 way that a child is being recruited.
Yes. These signs is very important identify. Yeah. When Silence Ends. It's a book written by you, Rebecca. The book contains 20 stories of the overcomers surrounded by educational pieces about the human trafficking. What was the inspiration process and purpose like?
Well, I'm very, very proud of that book, but I can tell you I do get a lot of the praise for it, being the author, but in truth this was a collaboration between me and 20 other survivor leaders across the nation. The inspiration behind it was that we really wanted, well, these men and women really wanted their stories to be told. They wanted to tell it from their perspective, and then they wanted the general population to say, like, this is really happening and this is how it's happening. We also decided that this book needed to be a collective because human trafficking is a very individualistic crime, and so by sharing these stories and showing how different each of the stories are, and then the educational pieces behind it, we felt like that was the best way to educate the community about the reality of it, and that's how it came together.
Thank you, Rebecca. When Silence Ends is amazing book. It's amazing book, yes. What had surprised you with the release of this book, and what is coming soon, Rebecca?
Yeah. Well, it was surprising how much the community has rallied around this book. We were hoping it would be like that, but you just never know when it's something so heavy. But we wanted it to be an educational tool. We knew we weren't going to get rich and famous from this book. We wanted it out there, and we wanted people to understand it. We have Sam Houston State University, which is the college that I just graduated from in December, has now picked up this book and is using it in their victim studies program and the curriculum there, which means the next generation is reading our stories and using it to go out and help other people. That's amazing. The community, again, has rallied around it so much that we are working on book #2 now.
This is amazing. Congrats. What is the importance of donors?
Donors are a huge importance to nonprofit work. Basically, without donors, we couldn't have this center. We wouldn't be able to provide the programs needed for these men and women. It is something to have the community to come behind you and say, hey, we know your mission and we support it, and to be able to just keep our doors open because of them. Without the donors behind us and backing us and supporting us, we absolutely would not be able to continue doing what we do. So it is hugely important to have them, and just again knowing that the community is there to support us in that way is amazing. So.
Hands of Justice is part of the Goya Cares Coalition Against Human Trafficking. Can you share how both organizations are linked?
Yeah. So I love Goya Cares, by the way. I mean, I think they're amazing in what they're doing and helping fight against child sex trafficking. I was linked with them in 2019, I believe. They came out and filmed my story and then shared my story on their website for Goya Cares. At the same time that they were doing that, they were starting to produce a short film that basically talks about the grooming process for a child, and I was able to help on that production. So I helped with the scripting, and then they flew me out to Los Angeles where I was on set as they filmed it. My job was really just to say, like, this is not accurate, this is how to portray it so that it is real to life. And I will tell you, they were one of the very first large organizations that really truly listened to what I had to say. It was life-changing for me because, I mean, most people can say, yeah, we get it, and we are going to listen to you, but they really did listen to me. When I said this isn't accurate, they changed it. And that means something to me. That means that what they're putting out there to help this cause is survivor-led and survivor listen to, basically. They listen to survivors. I love that about them. So I also am working with them and introducing them to Hispanic survivors such as Ana Hernandez, who are going to work alongside them so that they are speaking to their own population and her being able to share her own story and how it happened for her. Those things are just amazing to be able to be a part of with Goya.
Can you share a final message for our audience, Rebecca?
Two things. Get educated. Like we already stated, it's vital within trafficking, but also you can't help anybody if you don't know what to look for. Human trafficking is not black and white. I think people want to put it in this little box and say it looks like the movie Taken or something like that. And just like if you get educated, you're going to find how wrong that is and how individualistic these stories are. Every single person, again, their story is different, but that also means that their healing journey and their trauma is going to look very different, and the way that they cope with that is very different. So we have to be open to the idea that it's not just one thing. It doesn't just look like one thing. It's going to be different for everybody, and we have to treat it accordingly. The other thing I would say is to listen to survivors. Listen to overcomers that are sharing these stories. That is the reality of it, is what they're sharing with you, and it's ultimately really going to be their stories that stir people to action. And so if you hear somebody sharing a story about a trafficking or something that they've been through, listen to them and really appreciate the fact that they are able and willing and wanting to share that with you.
Thank you, Rebecca, for your time.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Es fundamental educar a nuestras comunidades sobre este problema. La educación es una herramienta clave para prevenir la trata de personas y proteger las personas vulnerables. Al aumentar la conciencia sobre este tema, podemos identificar las señales tempranas de la trata de personas y tomar medidas para evitar que las personas sean víctimas de esta forma de explotación.
I hate this. I hate my life. I'm never gonna...
Press pause, Mateo. I'm you, years from now. And let me tell you, life turned out pretty good, man. I know you can't see it now, but all these feelings you have and the moment you're in right now, it's nothing more than that. A tiny moment. God chose you for a purpose. Just take a breath. Press pause.
Goya cares because you are a precious gift from God.
Aislamiento. Una de las primeras cosas que hace un traficante es aislar a una víctima de sus amigos y familiares. Es más fácil manipular y controlar a su víctima de esta manera. Dejar de asistir a la escuela. Si bien la mayoría de los niños menores de 10 años seguirán siendo activos en la escuela, los adolescentes son otra asignatura. Los adolescentes que están siendo objeto de trata a menudo abandonan la escuela. Cambios en el comportamiento o la vestimenta. Aunque vestirse de forma inusual es un comportamiento adolescente normal, suele ser un proceso gradual. El cambio de vestimenta que ocurre casi de la noche a la mañana es diferente. Si la persona pasa de vestirse modestamente a vestirse de manera demasiado provocativa, tome nota. Lo mismo ocurre con un cambio de comportamiento. Desorientación, confusión o agotamiento. Ten en cuenta que las víctimas de la trata de personas a menudo trabajan muchas horas, tienen cuotas establecidas para ellos por sus traficantes y eso podría parecer tener que realizar actos sexuales hasta con 15 personas en una noche. Signos de abuso mental o físico. Las víctimas de la trata de personas a menudo muestran signos de deterioro de la salud mental. Su abuso a menudo provoca depresión, ansiedad, pánico, trastorno de estrés postraumático, pensamientos suicidas, entre otros. Marca. A menudo los traficantes tatuarán a sus víctimas con un símbolo, nombre o signo que permitirá que otros traficantes sepan que la víctima ya es de su propiedad. Signos de miedo, timidez o comportamiento sumiso. Las víctimas aprenden a cumplir para evitar el castigo o la reacción de su traficante. Parecerán tímidos, tranquilos y temerosos. Eso es porque lo son. Pasar grandes cantidades de tiempo en línea en secreto. El tráfico en línea está aumentando en número. Si un niño está hablando en secreto con alguien y no está dispuesto a discutir con quién, tome nota. Es más que probable que haya sido convencido de no decírselo a nadie, especialmente a sus padres. Regalos inexplicables o dinero en efectivo. El aseo personal generalmente viene con regalos y otras sorpresas del traficante. A las víctimas potenciales se les da con frecuencia dinero en efectivo o regalos que no están dispuestos a explicar a los demás. When Silence Ends es un libro que está escrito por Cary, donde comparte no solamente su propia historia, sino también cuenta la de otras mujeres sobrevivientes y donde todas pueden dar fe del hecho que el mal puro existe en este mundo. El propósito de Cary al compartir estas historias es que las personas puedan empezar a entender el alcance de lo que realmente está sucediendo a su alrededor, a menudo oculto a plena vista. Lo más importante es que lo comparten también a cada hombre, mujer o niño que todavía está ahí afuera en esa situación y de esta manera puedan entender que lo que les está pasando no es su culpa y dar esperanza de que algún día puedan encontrar luz al otro lado de la oscuridad. Rebecca y las otras mujeres sobrevivientes oran a Dios para que cada persona que lea este libro comience a prestar un poco más de atención a sus seres queridos y a las personas que lo rodean. Si ves algo, por favor, di algo.
Rebecca, can you share your story with our audience and how you got to thrive?
Yes, so I always really like to start out with the fact that I grew up in a really good family. I had 2 older sisters, a younger brother. I went to church twice a week. I went to a private school. I had a really great childhood. I think there's a misconception that most trafficked victims are from really bad families. And so I always like to share that part. Growing up, again, it was great until I was about 14 years old. When I was 14, I went to a party and I was sexually assaulted at that party. That sexual assault went public very, very quickly. 20 years ago, when something like that happened, normally the victim is blamed, and a lot of that blame did fall on me. I was told I was where I wasn't supposed to be, doing the things I wasn't supposed to be doing, and so I got what I deserved, and this was coming from family and friends, and I think the trauma of that bothered me more than the rape itself. Because of that, I started hanging out with the really wrong people. I started drinking and doing drugs. I ran away from home, skipped school. I started breaking the law. I broke into people's homes. I vandalized cars. Basically, I was miserable, and I wanted everybody around me to be just as miserable. My poor parents had no clue how to handle that kind of behavior. So the way that they dealt with that was to have me institutionalized. So I was institutionalized in my late teens 6 different times over about a 1.5 year period of time. I listened to professionals tell me that they didn't really know what was wrong with me, but they knew something was. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, something's wrong with me, I'm crazy. They are telling me I will never amount to anything, that I will always have to have somebody take care of me. If I graduate from school, I probably should just be put in a group home. I had at this point developed an eating disorder as well as started self-harming. Self-harming back then was viewed very, very differently than it is now. So it was something that I was told that I had a problem with. So by the time that I met my trafficker, I was a prime candidate to be preyed upon. I was in my early 20s and he was in his late 40s, very, very significantly older than me. However, he was different. He was nice to me. He would treated me like no man had ever, really no adult had ever really treated me like, or I felt like that. He made me feel special. He made me think that I was different and that I wasn't all of the things that people had told me. Regardless if I believed him or not, I believe that's how he looked at me when he was with me, if that makes sense. So he made me feel different, he made me feel special.
Las víctimas de la trata de personas pueden ser hombres, mujeres y niños, de todas las edades y orígenes. Por eso es que debemos educar a nuestra comunidad sobre las diferentes formas de trata de personas. Recuerde, si sospecha que alguien cercano, vecino, familia o usted mismo es víctima de trata de personas, no tenga miedo, alerte a las autoridades y busque ayuda. Y esto fue todo por hoy, amigos. Los esperamos en el próximo programa de Vibra Latina. Y recuerden seguirnos por todas nuestras redes sociales como Vibra Latina Houston.
Estos son los legendarios frijoles del Charrito. Su especialidad: su secreto, prepararlos con frijoles pintos Goya, con un sabor único y una cremosa textura. Y claro, con su toque personal. Por eso son mejor conocidos como
los frijoles del Charrito.
Los mejores.
Con Goya, tu plato estrella te quedará mejor que nunca. Si es Goya, tiene que ser bueno.
Nobody even knows I exist. I have no friends. Clearly she doesn't like me. Why wasn't I invited? They live like 3 houses down. I hate this. I hate my life. I'm never gonna...
Press pause, Mateo. I'm you, years from now. And let me tell you, life turned out pretty good, man. I know you can't see it now, but all these feelings you have, and the moment you're in right now, it's nothing more than that. A tiny moment. God chose you for a purpose. You're gonna go off and make those friends, the right ones. You're gonna have a family that likes you for you.
And you are gonna go off and do extraordinary things.
So my advice to you now, just take a breath, press pause, and remember, you are a precious gift from God. You are valued.
Goya cares because you are a precious gift from God.